Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you are about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. At the time of me filming this video, it's still a few weeks away from Comic-Con, but when it is aired, I think Comic-Con should be underway. To those of you who are battling through it, all I can say is congratulations and keep going. It is through your passion that really a lot of the entertainment industry, you know, is maintained, and it is you who, in many ways, shape the culture. So, uh, so hold on to that, and make sure that you use your substantial influence for the better, as the characters you often emulate or have been inspired by have proven to you. But anyway, I want to use this opportunity to talk about something that has been on my mind for a while now. Namely, I've been thinking about what it would take to build a brand new comic verse from scratch. Because I've been noticing things for as long as I've been online, and namely how comics as a collaborative medium both open up a lot of opportunities, but also have spiraled way out of control in terms of exactly how the stories they tell um, are actually told, or what it is about the stories that they tell that really draws people in. So how well do they like manage their main messages, and how do the necessities of uh, escalation or entertainment get in the way of that, or in general influence that facet. And in order to respond to that, I thought I would maybe design my own as either a template for future comic goers, or as for future comic readers, or comic artists, writers, creators, or as a potential point of reference for any future such stories. The idea behind my comic verse is twofold. First of all, I want plenty of variety. I want to make sure that there are venues for a larger deal of stories. First of all, but second of all, I also want the stories that are told to be more, let's say, relevant to the times, or to better reflect the realities and considerations and interests, desires of, modern audiences. Modern audiences uh, might not necessarily be interested uh, in a new character who's based off a flying rodent, for example. So I thought I would. So I'm not saying anything against the characters who have been before, who exist or who exist in this have existed within this setting before. But I want to go beyond that. I want to see what other storytelling avenues are available. So that's one of my points: variety. The second point I want to make is about, let's say, time management. You know how all comics take place on a sliding time scale, um, which means that a story that was told 40 years ago IRL can be referenced in comics as having happened like last year or something. That's kind of what I'm thinking about, because a lot of these comics are displaced in time in order to make them seem more, um, let's say, authentic, more engaging. And I thought, I would play around with that. The idea behind my comic verse is that I still want to have a sliding time scale. So I'm not gonna go with Dick Tracy and assume just everything is everything takes place in some kind of perpetual present, but rather I want each individual issue to take place, unless otherwise specified, over the course of maybe anywhere between a few hours and a few days. And I think all the issues that are told or that are released within a certain year take place either within the same month or the same 3 months. So yeah, I'm still operating off a sliding timescale, but I want to contain it somewhat. I want to make sure that there is a consistent, solid timeline that goes through it. So yeah, these are the general parameters I'm looking for. But what about the actual stories themselves? Well, for that, I actually have, let's say, I actually have six uh, ages or six framing devices, six time periods within which I want I want this comic verse to take place, and within each of these time frames, or in general narrative frames, I want there to be five ongoing titles, at least initially. Over time, it's possible that some of these titles could be dropped for whatever reason, and could be and then something else could continue, some kind of spin-off maybe, or there could be concurrent spin-offs, that kind of thing. But for now, at the starting point, at ground zero, there should be 30 stories evenly spaced across six frames of reference. Those frames of reference would still occupy the same universe, but the main interactivity would take place the main interactivity between these stories would take place within their respective frames of reference. So you're not really going to see company-wide crossovers. At least I'm not. I really haven't built a universe that would really allow that to happen. There are some common rules, but overall, I think the scope and the intentions behind a lot of these characters might not exactly fit something like a company-wide crossover, especially when you consider that a lot of these stories aren't really in the same genre either. Like, some of them are political thrillers, some of them are typical superhero stories, some of them are slice of life comedy, some of them are a lot of other things. Because, as I said, I want variety. And if that sacrifices comic book events, which, let's be honest, have been used as a sort of cheap cash mill, well then, so be it. Anyway, enough pandering. It's time I delve into the actual ground zero, or the characters who I envision within this ground zero. And as I said, there would be six frames of reference that I want to explore. The first of these frames of reference is called the Ancient Age, or more precisely, it should be the pre-modern age. Now I kind of think of it. And yeah, these frames of reference are somewhat split through across time, because I kind of want to still have some level of crossover possible. Anyway, within the Ancient Age, the first comic idea I want to explore is that of a Persian diplomat. So this comic will basically be the Game of Thrones of the setting, where you take one character and set them loose in a large interconnected world where they have to do a lot of politicking. And I think the Persian Empire, even specifically the ancient Persian Empire, even though more modern iterations would also be somewhat interesting, I think the ancient Persian Empire would be the most exciting frame of reference for that, because it is the biggest empire of its day, or on average has been the biggest empire for most of its days at least within that time frame. And it is surrounded or has interacted with a lot of different forces. So exploring those interactions would make for interesting entertainment, if I may say so myself. The second character within this ancient age would be a Greek superhero. And notice I'm only sticking to archetypes because I really only want to present the setting and the story concept. Anything else should be subject to the imagination and interests um, of the creators. The idea behind this Greek superhero, is that he can basically have any power he wants, but he has, or maybe not necessarily any power he wants. He should have the powers that are available to him as they are given to him by the Olympian gods. Because yes, the Olympian gods are meant to exist within this comic verse. They would not be the only pantheon that exists within this comic verse. I'll get to that. I'll get to that later. The extent to which the gods interact would interact in general, the degree to which the gods would interact with mortals pretty much depends on what I think is safe to call either rule of drama or rule of cool, or at least that's how TV Tropes calls it. They only step in if they think it makes the story that results more interesting somehow. So therefore, this superhero would have to negotiate not just the threat in front of him, but also to some extent the whims of the deities who grant him his strength. It is possible that the Persian diplomat and the Greek warrior and Greek superhero might eventually interact for a variety of reasons, because Persians and Greeks did interact in history, especially in ancient history. But for now, I'm just going to leave it open to the possibility, because there is actually another pair of characters who I envision interacting a little bit more closely. Those would be almost on the other side of the world, or definitely on the other side of Asia, in Japan, because I want, within this ancient or pre-modern age, to have parallel ongoing titles featuring, on the one hand, a samurai, and on the other, a ninja. Samurai, because I think it would be interesting to explore the politics and lawmaking within that setting of feudal Japan, or just in general, like the clan structure and the affiliations that result from that, and also the rivalries that emerge that way. What it means to be honorful, and what it means to be perceived as a warrior. And on the other hand, you have the ninja, who is basically in history, ninjas have resulted as a form of rebellion, as a form of fighting against the oppressive power structure. So I think the samurai and ninja are to that extent conflicting archetypes, the same way someone like Robin Hood is to the Sheriff of Nottingham. And and I think having these guys interact, or having these within the same setting, would allow the setting itself to be more fleshed out, more engaging. And these two could either have a Commissioner Gordon Batman dynamic going, or they could be each other's arch nemesis. I'm not exactly sure which of these ideas I lean towards more now, but still, I want both possibilities out there. The fifth and final character I want to mention within the ancient age is the Mesoamerican superhero, because yes, I also want to explore to some extent pre-Columbian, or I want this comic verse to also have pre-Columbian and even post-Columbian, actually, Native American or Mesoamerican populations. And this guy's deal, I assume it will be a guy. I might change my mind later. This guy's whole deal would pretty much be similar to that of the Greek superhero guys deal, because, in the sense that they would both receive their both receive their powers from deities. And but I think there is some level of flexibility when it comes to stuff like how they uh, how they gain their power, or whether or not these powers are uh, subject to removal. And that this idea should also allow for plenty of interesting super villains as well, villains who are empowered by some by other deities. And perhaps more so for the Greek guy, that one of that the the one god might choose to empower in one particular fight, might choose to empower the villain of the story rather than the hero. With the Mesoamerican guy, I think it would be more interesting if maybe he obtained his power through some kind of through some kind of ritual, and various other figures have obtained those through and obtained theirs through similar rituals. I mean, the villains of the Mesoamerican guy. So yeah, that's basically my ancient or pre-modern age closed out. Next stage I want to go to is the post-Renaissance or early modern age. By that I'm talking the framework of between the 15th and 18th century, when people are starting to figure out that uh, allowing excessive church influence is perhaps not as perhaps not as good a thing as it should be. All the old wisdom of the antiquity becomes rediscovered, and also there is a shift in paradigm insofar as insofar as the material conditions of the world make possible. There is a higher degree of industrialization, and gunpowder becomes a more important factor within warfare, which means that you don't need to train a class of warriors, aka knights, in order to in order to make sure that you have an army, or to make sure that you can enforce laws. And I think that is something and that development is something I really want to go a little bit into. And the first character who I think would uh, present an interesting development within that sense is a knight errant, or errant knight, depending on how you on how you choose to think of it. This is a guy has is from the lower nobility, but has might have lost a lot of some of his prestige for a variety of reasons, and who becomes an errand knight, and I just moving around, solving various issues, because that is still something he holds on to. He holds on not necessarily to his upbringing, but to his vows, and to his promise, to his ideas of himself, that he should be the protector of other people. The second character within this setting would perhaps represent his one of his greatest failings. Namely, I want the second character to be a highwayman slash Robin Hood kind of person. If you remember the 2011 movie with Russell Crowe, Robin Hood really was presented as kind of a proto-communist figure who wanted to share everything with the people around him, because he recognized that the governing system that he had previously pledged his allegiance to was corrupt and ineffective. And I think this Robin Hood analog that I want to that I want to go with could is very well suited within this kind of setting. So having be a little bit updated, because keep in mind there are societal changes, and these societal changes can go for the better or for the worse. And when you're a commoner, and you notice that uh, the societal power switches from a nobility class to a merchant class. You're not necessarily thinking, "Oh, great, this is my opportunity. I will now have better treatment under the law," or some stuff like that. You might also think, oh, great, now there is a second category of douchebag that can manipulate they can make the laws that I have to take care of, or that I have to worry about. This is where this Robin Hood analog would slot in as a hero of the people, as it were. And once again, the Iron Knight and the Robin Hood analog could have either a Gordon Batman dynamic, or something more akin to, I don't know, a Javert and Valjean kind of dynamic. The third figure I wanted to include within this age was initially a gentleman thief. Uh, something akin to Arsène Lupin. For those of you who don't know, Arsène Lupin has been created by a French author as a to be a master thief in response to the master detective Sherlock Holmes, who was created by an Englishman. And my initial idea was to have a gentleman thief character who would be like Lupin, able to pull off amazing or crazy feats of thievery, but only a few centuries earlier. But I don't know. I think that idea has already been kind of covered in a variety of ways with a variety of characters. So I wanted to play around with it. What would be the next big idea? What would be the next big idea available? And then I figured, what if instead of a gentleman thief, it were a lady thief instead? So yeah, this is the first character who is explicitly female, even though at least one of the other one of the other characters at least one of the other lead characters I've mentioned so far could be interesting as a could also be a female. This one is directly supposed to be a woman character, and I think it would be more interesting to explore what it actually means to what it would actually mean to be a thief within the aristocracy, because even within this world, uh, the aristocracy is still very much well off. So they don't need to steal for money or steal to be alive, but they do it either for one of two reasons: either because it's exciting and they can get away with it, or because the thing they want to get would allow them to get a favor in the future. And that it is that social aspect of the thievery that I think would be more interesting to explore, especially when you consider the fact that in general women are expected to play up to this social role a little bit more, at least within this setting. So playing around with that and giving her an entourage and allowing her to plan heists and manipulate other figures and delve into some kind of favor black market that the settings aristocracy would engage in. I think that would be something that is definitely worth exploring. And that's why I set out and that's why I want one of my stories even starting out, to be about this. The next figure within the early modern, in the early modern age, would be a native North American warrior, and by that I mean the typical, and by that I mean think of, and I'm sorry to use this term, all the fiction about. Uh, I was originally gonna say the Redskin. Yeah, I wanted to say Redskins, so I said that. But actually, Indian might be Indian might be better suited here, even though inaccurate. So again, sorry for the slur. But I want that. But I want that guy uh, only made real, made authentic. What would it actually be like to be a warrior within a native, no, native North American setting, which was admittedly a little bit more, mainly more complex than you would think when you first hear about tribes, because even tribes can have various leadership tiers and various social organizations, manufacturing, farming, etc., etc. And so yeah, having story focus on the warrior of one particular tribe, and interacting not just with other tribes, but also with white men, with settlers who are slowly encroaching upon native territory, is something I think would be worth exploring. The final story I want to talk about within this setting is, I've written it down in my notes here as Benin Warrior. Um, More precisely, I want to look at the pre-colonization sub-Saharan Africa, because a lot of what is known about that part of the world, both in general and in academic circles, is either incorrect or incomplete. So having a little bit more representation within of events within that part of the world would perhaps make for more intriguing explorations of what it's actually like to be within that setting. And it might also expand some minds uh, drive and drive future change in how certain groups of people are perceived. Not just modern people, but also people of the past. And I think warrior would be a good point to look at those changes, because I imagine they are at the sweet spot of interacting between the higher classes, the administrative classes, and the lower working classes. This is another guy I could imagine as a superhero, and 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 could perhaps deal with law enforcement, but also protecting against external invasion, for example. The third frame of reference I want to talk about is the modern age, or the contemporary age. So these characters uh, would be contemporary to their audience, more or less. And the five characters I have in mind are, first of all, um, uh, I actually have three superheroes in mind, and and two who occupy other niches. I'm going to start with those other niches, namely talk about a Brazilian model slash fitness instructor. And remember what I said, that when I said at the beginning that some stories will be slice of life comedies. Well, yeah, this is the slice of life comedy of the this is the slice of life comedy of the verse, where you have a fitness instructor who's just kind of model and fitness instructor who's just kind of hanging around, uh, occasionally doing his job. That might require some travel. That might require him interacting with his entourage, maybe being an influencer. and there are lots of comedic opportunities that could result from that. But also, I think to some extent there are some levels of action possible, even if a little campier, if I may say so myself. The second character I want to talk about is the Australian spy slash field operative. Think of this guy as the Australian James Bond. Why Australian? Well, a lot of people perhaps don't know about the Five Eyes Initiative, which is an espionage collaboration initiative by uh, uh, Canada, the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. And while there is plenty of espionage fiction about the United States and the United Kingdom, even though mostly James Bond, the other three of these Five Eyes are a little bit underexplored. So I want to have like a spy fiction story within this comic verse, and putting it on and having it be about this character who is comes from what I see as a pretty underrepresented category is something I think would be quite a little bit more interesting to behold. And now that I've gotten out and now I've gotten the more grounded figures out of the way, it's time I delve into the actual superheroes that I intended for this contemporary age. Starting with the Indian Trasseur, or Trasseuse, as you prefer. That means parkour practitioner. So yeah, I very much intend to have a superhero character who's maybe who not necessarily whose main power is the fact that they can parkour, but whose power would mostly manifest through through their ability to parkour. And this would be a very typical, very campy, very adventure-driven storytelling, superhero story. Think of it as a cross between like early Spider-Man and Kamala Khan Miss Marvel. That's basically who this character is going to be. Um, the other two superhero characters are a little bit will be a little bit darker. First of all, I have a Russian street thug. So I wanted at least one crime story within this setting. And while that lady thief story is interesting, it is also a little bit more it is a little bit more campy and a little bit more about the adventure and comedy. This character is going to be a lot more gritty, a lot more brutal. It's more of an action story and thriller aspect to it. He could still very much be a superhero, but if he is, he will be more of a Moon Knight or Punisher kind of guy. And but still he's getting off easy compared to the uh, last figure I want to mention within the contemporary setting, namely a Palestinian activist. Yeah, I'm going there. I want to use one character who is more definitely politically conscious, and more precisely more politically conscious about modern issues. So we're not just going allegory. We're talking full on, in your face, subtle as a brick. This is what's wrong with your worldview kind of politics. Admittedly, it would be very tempting to go into anti-Semitism with this. So you really have to tread carefully. There will be some people who say, "Oh, it's anti-Semitic regardless because it criticizes Israel." But it will criticize the Israeli state as is, not the existence of it in general. I think it would be make a lot of sense to have a lot of these characters supporting cast be Israeli as well. And that's the contemporary age. Next up, the future age. And with the future age, we are for the first time leaving Earth, and we're going into early space exploration. So it's not necessarily Federation. It's not Federation level. It's not Star Wars level. It might be Expanse level, where people are going through the solar system and figuring out how to arrange their societies from that point forward. It could, however, be on its way to like Federation level for from my perspective. Um, and I want, but we'll get into the specifics as we go through the characters. But the main idea is that it should be a dynamic world, socially, politically. It should come across as alive, authentic, and dynamic. First character I want to spotlight would perhaps is that of a ship maintenance technician. This would perhaps be more a workplace comedy, similar to what a lot of sitcoms became or were for a while in the uh, late '90s. So, and yeah, I think having that character, I think exploring the ways in which technology fails through the eyes of someone who would directly be confronted with the consequences of that is something that is worth exploring. And also, you can occasionally have the occasional ship battle, but presented in from that perspective, where you can delve a little bit more into what makes it thrilling, as opposed to what makes it fun or exciting. Thrilling to maybe even horrifying, to where you have someone like literally hardwiring a ship as it gets fired upon. Something to consider. The next characters I want to explore would be explorers slash scientists. Think of them as Fantastic Four, challengers of the unknown kind of figures. People whose main job is to expand the limits of their society's knowledge pool. And in order to do that, they would do a lot of experiments. Some of them would blow up in their face, or some of them could have some kind of other unintended consequences, and they might also be required to get physical uh, in their attempts to keep their operations going. Also another an avenue to explore would be that there is some comedic potential here, as in think of this as another potential place for workplace comedies within the setting, but also to some level political thriller, because you have to wonder how exactly can these people keep their operations afloat, and maybe there are political limits, there are political differences between them, and maybe those differences not necessarily shape but influence the way they approach science as well. What it is that they want to pursue, and how exactly their opinions change or fluctuate based on what it is they find, given their ideological, their pre-existing knowledge and opinion base. And now I've beaten around the bush for long enough. It's time I delve into the actual politics as I envision them within the future age. And because one of the characters within the setting would be a nomadic communist pirate. Or if you don't like the term communist, you could think of him as, I don't know, a communalist, if you prefer. Think of this character as the chief, as perhaps a chief army officer within something of a space caravan, a group of people who decide to live communally and nomadically, and explore what it is that would actually entail, how it is that they keep the doors open, keep their ships running, so to speak. And exactly what it is that they face in terms of in terms of what it of uh, how that lifestyle is challenged, both from within, but primarily from without. And it is perhaps this guy who is seen as their who could be seen as their superhero, who um, kind of delves into solve these these issues that are too big for literally anyone else to handle. The other part of the politics within this future setting revolves around, well, why don't they settle? What it is that they are trying to run away from? The very obvious answer would be an oppressive regime. So I don't, and with the oppressive regime, I want to look at it through two avenues. The first one is that of an officer cadet, someone who is training to become part of the military of that regime, someone who is figuring out the pragmatic aspects of what it takes to of what it takes to run any kind of political society, but in particular this this spacefaring society. Someone who um, someone who takes on the job of protecting it, and who has to maybe defend certain principles, which this regime may or may not have abandoned. So you'll have this guy who's in to some extent a collaborator, to another extent one of the good ones, if I may say so myself. And on the other hand of that narrative, there could be a resistance movement, and I think I want that resistance movement to also receive its own its own dedicated uh, its own dedicated comic run with its own cast and all of that other stuff. And those are the settings as they are defined by time. There are other settings that are defined more by the. There are two other settings, and these two other settings are defined by their. Let's say by their scope, if I may say so myself. These are the mystics and the cosmics. The mystics are the magic users within this comic verse, and they could really be from from any of the from any of the ages, or they could spread through several ages. Maybe instead of there being just one, there is an entire secret society of these guys, or they could just be isolated characters within one of these given given ages. Regardless, let's delve a little bit into those. First of these is the Alchemist, because I have to say, aside from Full Metal Alchemist and its adaptations, I don't really think I've seen alchemy adapted or really explored to a meaningful degree, and that is something I want to do with you know with this comic run. Take an alchemist, have have him explore have him use the dynamics of his the dynamics of his worldview, and and then use them to accomplish whatever it is that that he wants to do. Maybe he's a superhero. Maybe he's like a magical superhero fighting magical supervillains. That's that's something that could be explored. Or maybe he's like fighting some kind of other villains within his setting. The next character within the Mystics is a druid. I really want to delve a little bit more into the. I think I okay. I shouldn't say it like this. I should say I also want to delve a little bit into Celtic mythology, and I want to see how exactly that magic system would really work, and what it is that would actually, and what it is that makes that realm interesting in terms of like fairy tales, Arthurian lore, but also beyond that. What kind of other stories you could tell from that basis. The next character I want to mention is going to Eastern mysticism now, and I've been vacillating back and forth between having a Hindu preacher or a Brahmani or a Buddhist monk. Ultimately, I think the Buddhist monk would perhaps have it, because Buddhism, as it exists, it kind of exists as a crossroad between two large schools of thought within within Eastern philosophies, and and I think the explorations of the lore of lore and such, and also the rose gallery that this monk could have would make for an interesting comic run. So for that reason, again, this is one of the guys I want, from day one in the verse. And the last but not least within the mystics category is would perhaps be the Aboriginal shaman. So yeah, uh, the magic, the fantasy setting that is represented by Aboriginal myths and stories. Again, this is admittedly a large set of beliefs that is woefully underrepresented, and it is one I want to see, more of. And last but not least, we have the cosmics. The cosmics is actually the one frame of reference where I've had the most trouble, because initially the cosmics were supposed to be like spacefaring characters and civilizations, but then that became the future age, because I wanted to take like Earth and extrapolate what it would be like in the future, but I realized that rests on a lot of assumptions that might not age well. Whereas, uh, whereas I decided that instead, that what I should do instead for the future age is assume that the frame of reference, so sticking to Earth, is is no longer available, and I should just go beyond that. Still, cosmics could have been used as a frame of reference to explore beings or civilizations that can travel beyond the capabilities of the human characters. And I stopped for a while and realized that I could at that point just as well just write about gods, given that they're also more readily available and more recognizable uh, to the uh, average comic reader. And that is what I thought I would that is what I ended up uh, jotting down notes about. And these stories I'm going to talk about are really going to be rather retellings of various myths, because after all, those stories already are in the public domain and they are quite extensive. So why not take advantage of that? And the pantheons I decided this part of the setting would focus upon are Norse, Greek, Aztec or general Mesoamerican, Egyptian, and Japanese. These are some of these pantheons you will recognize have influence upon other parts of the verse, but some others are here, I have to admit, as a consolation prize, because I wanted to involve characters from those settings, but couldn't really figure out how to fit them. These are basically the pantheons I want to focus upon. with perhaps the well, with perhaps a little adjustment as to who the central characters would be. For the Norse, I think I want to focus them on Baldur, even though even though that might be a bad idea, given because given Baldur's death is one of the signs of Ragnarok, which is the end of Norse mythology. I might just focus on the end and should instead look at a little bit back in the past. But for now, I'm just going with that because I think focusing Norse mythology on Baldur would be a more interesting take on it than just going back to four. Especially because if you actually look at the myths, I think Baldur more closely represents what one typically imagines the hero archetype to be, i.e., the protector of those who can't protect themselves. For the Greek pantheon, you could focus those stories on really anyone. They are broad and wild in more ways than I can count. But I think the best focus character would be like Hecate, the goddess of magic, because that is a unique lens for the for this particular setting as a whole, which is a plus. Not saying she's the only goddess of magic that exists in any pantheon, but Greek mythology hasn't really been told through that perspective. So having her be having her be in this situation would be more interesting. Would be something that would add a little bit of variety to the story. The focus character for the Aztec mythology, I think, should be their main god Quetzalcoatl, who uh, who who of all the characters here, or almost all of them, is the only one who could be said to have a leadership position. So it would be more about him keeping his kingdom together. Final two, Egyptian and Japanese, will once again be female led. The Egyptian one by Isis, who has a surprisingly underrated role if you actually consider all the things that she is actually involved in. And the Japanese one will be focused on Amaterasu. And I my thoughts behind the behind focusing upon the Japanese, or in general the Shinto pantheon, is that while there are lots of stories or references that that come across through a lot of media, gaming, anime, etc., there isn't really a lot that goes into the original myths, and it is and it is and these are the aspects I really want to delve a little bit more into. What is the authentic Japanese mythology like? What is it that it actually seeks to seeks to establish, seeks to uh, present about the world, and how does that moving forward influence influence uh, the ways in which the people who tell those stories view the world and interact with it. So yeah, these are basically the characters I would want to focus upon if I were to write a comic verse. Given I've already mentioned crossovers a few times, I don't necessarily I want to keep some time for crossovers, or for any kind of major events. I'm gonna say somewhere between 2 and 5 years before any singular individual story can like do a big event, though they could still do like continual storylines. Um, as for like made big crossovers, that should wait out for again a few years to really establish all the characters, what they're about, when what it is that they can each bring to any story, and then have them actually bring those aspects to that story. And yeah, that was uh, that was all I had to say. I had a lot to say, I know, but and I probably could have started talking a little bit more if I was given a little bit more of a focus. But in general, in these are the broad strokes. These are the stories that I would want told if I were in charge of uh, you know creating my own comic verse. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please leave a like, maybe even share the video wherever you think other people will like it as well. If there is anything you'd like to add to the video, maybe more suggestions, maybe a redefinition of the ages or something like that, well, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about book-related and literature topics, a link to which you will find in the description down below. Right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out, should you choose to. You'll also find my Patreon listed down in the description, in case you want to support me more directly, and maybe even receive perks such as early access to videos and scripts, both for this channel and my main one. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.